This is just a short response to the weapons of mass destruction that were supposedly found in Iraq near the end of 2014 and were claimed to be under the control of ISIS. Oops. No, it's not an oops. Um, there were never weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. That's the lie. Okay, you don't need to go to explain why they would pretend that they didn't find them. They didn't find them. But they want to tell you that they found them in order to uphold the narrative of history that was presented by the media. If you were alive during the period, it may frighten you to think of the way that the history books will be written, and in fact, are already being written. I read an article a little while back about this, and if you can find a history textbook designed for high school students, I would do so. I would bet that you will be appalled at its contents. It will, like I said, I've read a few articles, and the history books for high school students that they've already put out there are completely whitewashing the entire situation. Um, Demonizing all of the opposition to the war, and upholding the narrative that um, George Bush II was absolutely correct to take us into Iraq. That's what kids learn in high school nowadays. Um, and so, in the long run, what the narrative of history will state is that we went to Iraq to find weapons of mass destruction, and we found them. Why else would we go other than to find what we were looking for? And we found what we were looking for too. And the war was therefore justified on the basis it was presented to us as. Of course, it serves current purposes to give those weapons to the bad guys that we're funding. But, you know, just as a secondary part of this, he suggests that people are modifying their perspectives about the war. They say that there's a higher percentage of people that were opposed to the war today than there were 10 years ago. And we're changing our minds. And then he tries to suggest it's controlled or something. I don't. I think that there's a much less complex explanation, and it's simply that. And again, if you were alive at the time, you remember this. It's that older people were more in favor of the war, and younger people were more opposed to it. So when you ask a question like that 10 years later, you have a lot of dead people that aren't going to answer your polling, and you have a lot of younger people that are old enough to answer your polling now. You know, so if you were 12 during the invasion and you opposed it, you can't answer that question over the phone, but you can answer it when you're 22. And likewise, if you were 60 at the time and died at the age of 67 of cancer, you wouldn't be around to answer that question 10 years later. I'm not saying that there's been no reevaluation. Um, it's well understood that everybody went to Woodstock, right? But there's a much simpler explanation to explain the shape of the shifting data. And it's just that old people die because everything dies.